Hey, you guys. Oh my goodness. Hello. It's Paige. It's Paige from the Nature Center, the Helen Schuler Nature Center. Welcome back to another Home Eco Challenge. Today, we're talking about plants. So stick around. It's the Natural Leaders Project Home Eco Challenge. Okay, hello everybody. So today we're talking all about plantos. What we will discover is that they are like basically amazing and wonderful and completely fundamentally important for our life here. So we're going to start by talking about like what plants are, like what makes a plant, and kind of some of the different features of plants. And then we'll take a look at how we use plants in our everyday lives. Spoiler alert, they're really important. Then we'll look at kind of our funny, comical, futile, modern love-hate relationship with plants and our like unceasing kind of desire to control and dominate them, which is crazy to say the least. And then we'll look at how to grow plants at our own homes, because that's very important. Like, how can you create a natural food source for yourself and for the various pollinators and animals that you share your home with? We're gonna be like little urban farmers by the time we're done. Ooh! So let's begin by talking about like, what is a plant? What makes a plant a plant? What are those? I'm sat here in this magical little like nymph-like forest. I feel like a unicorn's gonna come up from behind. Oh, look at that rock! Oh, there's so many cool things happening right now. It's so nice out. Oh my goodness. I just like cannot be happier. It's like juicy out. It's juicy. That's how beautiful it is. I love spring. Anyway, let's start by talking about what plants are. Number one, plants are producers. This means that they make their own food. At the beginning of the food chain, they're the ones that are turning this amazing sunlight into an actual usable form of energy for like other organisms in the ecosystem. It's magic, you guys. It's crazy. Well, I mean, it's science, but like, it's insane. An organism can actually synthesize the photons of sunlight into a usable energy form. Now, what do we call this? Photosynthesis! Photosynthesis. Basically, the plants take sunlight and from the air and water from the ground, from down through their root systems, and then carbon dioxide, which they actually like suck up into their leaves through these like pores on the underside of the leaf called stomata. And they mix all these three ingredients, air, sunlight, and water, into a usable form of energy, into sugar. I mean, hello. All of this to say, plants are producers. The second thing that makes a plant are their cells. Now, all living things are made up of cells. I'm talking like trillions and trizillions of cells. Plants have very unique cells. Now, plant cells are, actually, let me show you a picture. Boing! Look at this. That's a plant cell next to an animal cell. Woo! Can you tell me what the difference is? Do 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 boop doop doop down down doop deep down chicka bow 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 doop boop doop 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 doop. Anyway, can you tell what the difference is? Well, plant cells have walls. Now, each and every single one of the cells that make up a plant has a wall around it. Now, these cell walls are made of cellulose, and they do a lot of things for the cell. First of all, they contain the cell and keep it from like becoming oversaturated with water and exploding all over the place. And the cell walls actually like add structure and stability to the plant cell and therefore the plant. That's kind of what makes the plants crunchy. All right, last but not least, let's talk about the parts of a plant. So starting at the bottom, because we started from the bottom, and moving up, at the bottom of the plant are the roots. Now, all plants have roots, and sometimes they're big and chunky, like tap roots, and then sometimes they're super eeny-weeny, like fine, fibrous, kind of like hair-like roots. And essentially, when you have those big taproot style roots, those are just like going straight down to the bottom. They're going down to where the water is. And often when you have kind of smaller roots, those tend to be on plants that you find in hotter, drier climates, where the plant roots that are smaller can go in more directions because there are more of them. So the plant like invests in creating lots and lots of tiny roots that can go off in all directions in search of water. These, these guys, the cottonwood trees, they actually have like really eeny weeny roots. Now you'd think, looking at them, that they're massive, that they'd have like big, ginormous roots, but they don't. In fact, like when you see one that's like fallen over because it's died, you'll see the tree like flonked over and its root system looks like a cheap Halloween wig. Like, it is crazy how skinny the roots of these big trees are. And that's again because this is a really dry place. So that tree invests in spreading roots as far and wide as possible in search of water. But suffice it to say, the roots, whether they're big or whether they're small, are there to hold and stabilize the plant. It has the added benefit of actually holding the soil in place and stabilizing that soil and keeping it from like eroding really quickly. And the roots also hold like water in the ground, much like a sponge, essentially. So roots help hold the ground in place, they hold the plant in place, they hold water in place, and they also act as like the method of like sucking up nutrients and things like that from the soil. That said, like, shout out to the little microorganisms and bacteria in the soil that actually break those nutrients down small enough that they can be absorbed into the root system. It's not just the plants, it's also like all the amazing things in the ecosystem that support those plants, which is great. All right, the second part of the plant is the stem. Now, the stems are like the more structured part of the plant. That's often where you find tissues like the xylem and the phloem that actually transport the sugars and the waters throughout the plant. It's kind of like a little tube network, if you will. Sometimes stems can also photosynthesize, like the green colored stems. Green stems tend to have chlorophyll in them, and chlorophyll is the chemical that helps in the process of photosynthesis. So some trees, like the trembling aspen trees, which are the ones you find when you're like out in the foothills or in the mountains, they actually have a slight pigment in their trunks, which is like a stem basically, for larger woodier plants. They have chlorophyll in their trunks, which means that they actually can start photosynthesizing before they even have leaves. That's why aspen trees tend to actually leaf first in the season. They're kind of like, they're the first tree to go to leaf in the springtime because they've actually been like making sugar and like preparing themselves early on in the season through that photosynthesis in their trunk, which is super cool. Right, last but not least, we have the leaves. Plants have leaves, even like adapted leaves. Like some plants don't look like they have leaves, but they do. Like cactus is a great example. The cactus leaves are like modified over many, many generations into the actual spines, like, or the little sharp, pointy, pokey bits of a cactus. Those are actually the leaves. They serve a different function though. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. The point is, the next stop on our like tour of a plant are leaves. Leaves are amazing. They're like the kitchen of the plant. That's where a lot of the photosynthesis goes down. This is because leaves basically have most of the chlorophyll, which is the green pigment that is part of the chemical process of photosynthesis. Leaves are also like structurally designed to photosynthesize because they have, as I'd said earlier, those pores, the stomata that help intake carbon dioxide and actually release the waste product of that plant's photosynthesis, which is oxygen, thankfully. And over the season, of course, as the plant kind of comes to the end of its, well, as the leaves come to the end of their part of the life cycle, they lose their chlorophyll and they turn into those beautiful golden colors, and then they fall to the ground. And that's part of the nutrient cycling of that tree overall. All those little decomposers come, they break down the leaves into smaller nutrients that the tree can then actually recycle as part of new growth in the spring season to follow. It's really cool how all that goes down. There's also tons of different kinds of leaves, and I'm not going to get up like super in depth into tree anatomy and plant anatomy and stuff like that right now, but it is interesting to think about different kinds of leaves and how you can identify a plant based on whether it has simple leaves or compound leaves and what kind of compound leaves it has. So very cool stuff. All right, so that's like Leaf 101. They're producers, they photosynthesize, they have cell walls that are made of cellulose, and they have a few consistent parts: roots, stems, and leaves. So now that you know a little more about the plants, I have a challenge for you. I want you to head out into your yard and find a leaf or 2 or 10 or whatever. And I want you to make a leaf rubbing. That's where you take the leaf and then you put a piece of paper on top, and then you take like a pencil or pencil crayon and you like shade it over the paper, and the impression of the leaf is transferred onto the paper. So make a leaf rubbing or 2 or 10, and then also see if you can ID what leaf that comes from, like what plant that leaf comes from, and write it down or label your leaf rubbing. If you want to like take Paige's super awesome hardcore skookum challenge, you can take as many leaf rubbings as you can from as many different kinds of plants that you can find in your yard, and actually construct a herbarium. Herbarium is like a catalog or a collection of all the different plants that you have in your like yard or in a region or in a space. I'm working on a bunch of like overambitious landscaping at my house right now. So I'm really excited to do a herbarium actually, and to like catalog every kind of plant that I actually have in my yard. And I'll actually also add some like notes. So that's your first challenge. Do a couple of leaf rubbings and then compile them if you'd like. If you're ambitious, if you're feeling your feelings, then you can compile as many of those leaf rubbings as you can and start the construction of like your very own home herbarium. All right, you guys, so I've switched locations here just to keep it interesting, and also because people are listening. It's hard to record yourself when people are listening. I find, it's my own opinion, because keep in mind, though this seems like a sophisticated, well-produced production number to you, to me, I am a lady talking to myself alone in the forest, like a crazy person, which is basically me living my best life. So don't feel too sorry for me. So the second thing we're going to talk about today are how we use plants in our everyday life, which I think is like really easy to forget the extent to which plants are basically the reason why we're alive. They sustain every aspect of our daily life. And let me tell you how. Number 1, fresh air. I already talked about it at the beginning, photosynthesis. Shout out to all of these amazing little plantos. Thanks, babies. For basically continuously taking in our garbage carbon dioxide air and producing oxygen. Yes, indeed. Some plants actually do this better than others, and we're really lucky to live in a place where the like native species here are highly efficient air purifiers. All right, the second thing that plants do for us is they actually store and maintain and manage our water, which is especially important here in the super duper dry, hot prairies, where like at least native grassland plants have these really well-developed, like sprawling, expansive root systems. They can store and hold that water for months and months and months, and like slowly draw on that water over time. Like in August when it's like super hot out and there's like no rain, the plants are totally okay because they've been storing that water. So plants with like deep, amazing, extensive root systems help us manage our water. Shout out to you, plants. All right, number 3, medicinal plants. Now, oh, wait, let me get my little, check it out. I'll talk about this in a second. So plant medicine is like ancient traditional knowledge that is a fundamental aspect of our survival on this planet and our ability to heal ourselves as a species, which is so cool. Even today, 10% of the like medicine that we consider to be like vital essential medicine is actually like derived from flowering plants. We do tend to like create synthetic medicines now, but that's really just about efficiency and things like that. But medicinal plants, not only as like a vital source of medicine, but also like preventative medicine in our lives and understanding, you know, what our bodies need and things like that is really, really important. I'm really excited. I'm gonna like grow some echinacea about it, and you know, sage and mint and all of these. There's so many different medicinal properties in various plants that you're actually probably familiar with or that grow in your yard. Like dandelions. Dandelion is a medicinal plant. It's not from here, and some consider it to be an invasive species, but it's still really vital to like medicinal health overall. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. Boom. I have this really cool resource that we created at the Nature Center. It's like a medicinal plant booklet. So it's got like little pictures of the plants and like little information on them. Yeah, that's right side up. So you can actually like take these out into the coulees and like have a little snoop cruise around and see what you can find. I will link these into the description box below, but they'll also be in the email that you get if you're enrolled in the Home Eco Challenge. And I'll send along this too. This is like the bingo sheet component. And so you gotta try to find all of them and like read what they are and like draw a happy face on them if they're good for you, or a frowny face if they're bad for you, because not all plants are good for you. Don't just go out into the world eating plants. Yeah, check it out. Print one off if you'd like and like take it camping with you or to your next adventure. That said, shout out to the legal department of the city of Lethbridge. I hereby do declare, do not eat plants. You and I are not professional official plant ID specialists. So even though this information is true, don't just like go out identifying plants and then like eating them willy-nilly, because some things will, if they won't kill you, which some can, they certainly will give you the slibby poos. So watch out, be safe. Make good decisions. All right, number 4, the fourth thing that we use on a daily basis that we get from plants are obviously plant fibers. Plant fibers. So this is everything from like our clothing, which are based off of like cotton or hemp fibers, to things like paper products that we, use to learn and read and share knowledge, which is super important. Another thing that we use plant fibers for are like actual construction of the built environment around us. Your house is probably made out of a good deal of wood, right? Those kinds of things. The chair that you're sitting on. Now, more and more in this day and age, more and more of the things in our daily life are actually constructed out of like plastic alternatives or petroleum-based alternatives like plastics, or like composite materials or polyester if you think about like your clothing. So although we still use plant fibers regularly, more and more of them are being kind of swapped out. That said, there will always be a demand for like plant-based fibers. This is why like sustainable farming and forestry is so super important. We want to make sure that while we're collecting all of these plant fibers and plant resources, that we're also doing it in a sustainable way that keeps, our ecosystems healthy, that allow us to like maintain wildlife habitat, like basically ensure that we always have access to these resources in a sustainable, environmentally friendly way. Blarg! I totally forgot. The fifth use we have for plants is obviously food. We eat tons and tons and tons of plants. I can't believe I forgot to talk about this one. Anyway, the 5th thing we use plants for, food. So your second challenge for today is to actually like make a quick list, jot down quickly like what are all of the plants that you've used so far today.